Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer at 40K Podcast. I'm your host, in case you don't recognize my voice, Trevor Buzak. Welcome. We got the B team joining me today. I did a hostile takeover, kicked out Mark, kicked out Christian, kicked out James. Joining me, we got Gerald. Welcome.
Hello.
Another podcast with Gerald, my boy. He can read, he can write, and he can do a lot of different voices. Welcome.
You're too kind, good sir.
And joining us for the first time on like a main episode ever is Nick.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Oh man, I'm excited to have you on. You were on one of our trivia nights, and that was a lot of fun. And then you also helped out with some Dad Hammer stuff, so that was pretty sweet too.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got a good episode here today. Get your tissue paper ready because I think we're going to be crying a lot knowing what happens to these poor Astartes. They get put through the ringer a couple times, but today's episode we're talking about the Lamenters and all the fun and horrible things that get to happen to them over the millennia. But before we get into that, we're just going to do some quick housekeeping. If you're hanging out in the live chat room, I know a couple people are, how do our voices sound? Hello. Just let us know. Like I said, if I find out that one of us you can't hear and we do a whole episode, I'm coming after you, group chat. I'm coming after you. If you want to be a part of the group chat, you can go join Discord. You can join Patreon. You can, find links anywhere. Just somehow get a hold of us and I'll shoot you out links to join the live stream, join whatever we got going on. Speaking of live streams, we try to do it every Friday night at 8:30 Central Standard Time. But sometimes we miss a week here and there. But that's kind of the goal. Keep your eyes open on the Discord, and we'll shout out to everything that needs to happen and where we can be found and all that kind of stuff. We also have a Patreon. If you guys want to support it, just go Lorehammer Patreon. Very easy. Click it, throw us $1, throw us $2. Makes you feel good, I think. I think that's the quickest intro I've ever done, really, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wicker time.
Quick, easy, and simple. But that Patreon, it's huge. Join the Imperial Tithe. You get a fun green tag on Discord. It's awesome. And get to help out the community.
Yeah,
and
I heard
we're not above calling guests either at the end of the episode. So just message Mark and you'll be getting yourself a nice little link. So,
Yeah, I've been loving the calling guests. Very fun doing it that way. Very cool little addition. I think we're ready though. Let's talk about some Space Marines. Let's talk about the Lamenters. Do you guys know anything? Like, what's your one sentence teaser about the Lamenters?
Well, if you're tired of Astartes winning all the time, just look at the Lamenters. They get dunked on.
Okay. So this is like the masochists army to play. If you like getting whipped during foreplay, this is kind of the one you want to go to.
Pretty much.
Okay.
And if you
They
really don't like Blood Angels,
Yeah. Well, they're pretty neat, but basically, that's a kind of short gist of it. It seems like they just have a string of bad luck that happens to them. And we'll get into it now. The Lamenters are a tragic remnant of the Emperor's loyal sons, a chapter doomed by a shadowed fate that clings to them with relentless cruelty. None among the legions of the Emperor's making have borne misfortune so harshly or so persistently. Their triumphs turned to ashes, their conquest tarnished and hollow, as the galaxy itself has cursed them. Spawned from the revered blood of the Blood Angels in the ill-fated 21st cursed founding, the Lamenters were forged with a secret cure for the gene seed afflictions that plagued their lineage, the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. Yet, that cure, too, may now be forever lost to them. Twice on the brink of annihilation, first in the unforgiving crucible of the Badab War, and later against the overwhelming nightmare swarm of the Tyranids, they have suffered nearly beyond measure. Their legacy remains scarred, their strength questioned, and their fate seemingly sealed. Yet still, their chapter master declares that with each calamity, the Lamenters only rise again. as steel tempered in a crucible of never-ending sorrow. Yeah, so they're a Blood Angel successor, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that affects their gene seed later on and stuff, but it's interesting how when you try to get rid of one of these curses, it seems like you end up cursing yourself in a different way. It's almost like the monkey's paw. Make a wish for something to happen and you get a different kind of thing happening to you now.
Or if you're trying to solve a problem, then you're just making other problems in the process. So what are you really doing?
Yeah, they're the living version of the meme, the bad luck Brian, pretty much.
Yeah, jeez. Rip. Yeah. There's a lot to them. Like, I think the first time I kind of really took note was in the Badab War stuff. That's kind of where they become big players and kind of where their fate really truly gets sealed, I think. But being a 21st founding chapter, they're relatively like they're newish, all things considering. So.
Mm-hmm. So I guess being relatively new, I guess we can go into the chapter history unless someone else has anything to comment. All right, chapter history. The Lamenters were birthed amidst the shadowed mystery of the 21st cursed founding in the early 36th millennium, a founding spoken of only in the darkened halls of the Inquisition and whispered of with suspicion among the Adeptus Astartes. It is said that the chapters created in this founding carry a taint upon their very souls, a curse that festers beneath their loyalty. Forged from the bloodline of the Blood Angels, the Lamenters were genetically altered by the Tech Priests of Mars to purge their gene seed of the Black Rage and Red Thirst. And yet, whether by error or fate, the Lamenters suffered from a relentless melancholy, a mental shroud that darkens even their noblest of deeds. Whether this shadow is a flaw of their lineage or the imprint of their accursed history remains unknown. Though spared the grotesque and uncontrollable degeneration that haunts other sons of Sanguinius, the Lamenters bear a mark, a stain that renders them estranged from their brethren. Many among the Adeptus Astartes view them with distrust, as the chapter is often shunned despite its unshakable loyalty to the Emperor and its countless sacrifices for his Imperium. In the early 37th millennium, as chaos and heresy gripped the Imperium and corrupted Astartes of the 21st founding turned against the Emperor, the Lamenters, choosing honor over internecine slaughter, withdrew to the far fringes of the Imperium. As a fleet-based chapter, they set forth on an unyielding crusade, taking their war to enemies beyond, rather than embroiling themselves in insidious conflicts festering within the Imperium.
Yeah. So we've thrown out a lot of terms already. Maybe we'll just go back and refresh some of these terms. Like, what is a founding? Do you guys know?
Yeah, isn't it when like the Adeptus Mechanicus or they start to get some of the gene seeds together and start to create a new chapter, either to replenish ranks or to try and send them out on maybe not so much specific enemies, but like areas of space to deal with certain situations, kind of like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's been a lot of different foundings over the year. And it seems like, yeah, the 21st founding for some reason or another was cursed. And seems like all of them that were a part of that founding have some type of crazy gene seed flaw. There's I'll list a couple of the other ones because there's some interesting guys in here, like the Firehawks, and they're known to have disastrously bad luck and also sometimes maybe spontaneously combust. So that's kind of fun. Kind of fun. The Black Dragons, they have these additional bone growths. So they're Asmedulla zygote, one of their kind of gene seed implants, it goes into hyperdrive and it ends up creating like bones that come out of their elbows or knees, and like they have these spikes or foreheads sometimes, like unicorns. So that's pretty nice too.
Does this mean that they have a special power armor designed just for them with these?
Yeah. There's some of them that have almost like they have the lightning claws, but you can tell that the lightning claws are removed and like it's bone coming out, or they won't have armor past their, shoulder pads, and they might be bare armed.
Yep, there is official artwork of black dragons that have modified armor to fit their bone growths, essentially.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Another cool chapter from this founding is the Sons of Antaeus, and they're known for almost being like Primaris Marines, where they're bigger, they're stronger, tougher. They might not be faster, but I imagine if you're stronger, you're also probably faster, just because you can move muscles quicker. But it just seems like all these chapters, for some reason, have something quirky going on with them. So that's kind of what a founding is, and how that kind of operates. And these guys, there's been a bunch of different foundings. Another thing that we were kind of talking about is blood angels and successors and all that. So we'll just do a quick little recap. If the blood angels, there are 9 primary loyalist legions that you could draw gene seed from. And these guys, they draw theirs from the blood angels. And like Nick was saying, the Mechanicus gathers it, the High Lords of Terror requisition a chapter to be made and all that, and then they take gene seed from these chapters, and then they make their own unique chapter. They give them their own heraldry, they give them their own war gear, their own command structure, and all that kind of stuff. The other 2 quick things we touch on are the Black Rage and the Red Thirst, because these are like Blood Angel specific things, and that's what gives them their character. The Black Rage is like when Sanguinius died, their Primarch and the Horus Heresy, they basically all suffer from nightmares, but when they're waking, visions of death and heresy, essentially. When Sanguinius was killed, it like imprinted on the gene seed, and all of the successors and all the blood angels and everyone down his genetic line got imprinted with this psychic rage, essentially, of these visions of death. And that will drive them into the Red Thirst, where they basically just become uncontrollable berserkers, where they want to slaughter and drink blood. And the chapter will look at these guys as like pitiful creatures sometimes, depending on the chapter. Some will honor them as like, we will all be affected by this. So let's honor our brothers in their time of, need. And we might not send them on suicide missions, but we'll give them something to do, where other chapters, they would be like, yeah, you guys are going off on a suicide mission. You're a blight on our honor and all that kind of stuff.
Well, so let me ask this question for the newly initiated, or for friends that just don't know: are the Black Rage and the Red Thirst technically 2 separate things? Can one succumb to the Red Thirst without the Black Rage, or are they just so intertwined one follows the other?
Yeah, I would like to think that one follows the other, but I would imagine the Black Rage always comes first. Like, you get these visions of heresy, essentially, of your Primarch being killed, and you're basically reliving this moment of Sanguinius fighting Horus, and then eventually you die, and then that sends you into this like berserker mode. But the Red Thirst is also kind of always lingering. It's that little thing at the back of your mind where it's just like, should I murder everyone? Nah, not today. Maybe tomorrow.
I mean, that's where like the Blood Angel meme of Horus comes from too. So.
Right. And the big thing with the rage too is once you succumb to it, 99% of the time there's no coming back. You're always in like that berserker mode.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I think there might be 1 or 2 examples of people coming back, but yeah, it's pretty much you're done for.
Yep.
We got a comment here from Jacob. IIRC, the 21st founding was done after the finding a lost gene laboratory that was involved in the original creation of the Astartes and had older gene seed. So the AdMech decided to try and solve some. Okay, cool. Yeah, it would be cool to do like a 21st founding, or just like a founding in general, but the 21st is by far the most interesting.
We also got to think too, because I think like the Black Dragons that you mentioned, and this is kind of going into the weeds of like the other founding legions, was you find some of them are more prone to mutations or more prone to like failure almost. Like, yeah. You hear a lot of Ultramarine successors, you hear a lot of Imperial Fist successors, but not many Salamanders, which are the Black Dragons, which Black Dragons are a successor of. And same thing with Space Wolves, Raven Guard, something like that. Yeah.
Like the Raven Guard during the Heresy, they tried to make their own version of Primaris Marines, essentially, back in the day, and they ended up mutating their gene seed, and then it got corrupted and infiltrated by Alpha Legion, and the whole big shenanigan happen. But yeah, that's one thing about like the gene seed is there are different levels of purity in it. Yeah, some are fine, like the Ultramarines, where they're not suffering from too much, but others are suffering. And I always think about 10,000 years too. Like, honestly, that's such an incomprehensible number. Like, we have like 6,000 years of recorded history that we kind of fall back on. And like, I can't even comprehend that. So, to have this like genetic line for 10,000 years and reusing it and regrowing it, it's like almost a pseudo cloning technique with the gene seed, as they take it from one guy, put it in another guy, and then take that one and regrow one and put it in another guy. So, as 10,000 years progresses, things get even crazier to some of these gene seeds.
It's crazy. And I feel like it gives them such flavor too, compared to like the rest of the Astartes, because they have all these weird quirks to them.
Yeah, it's like the only thing that really makes Astartes interesting is like, how fucked up are you guys? Like, what's your quirk?
Alrighty. Now I guess we'll segue into some more of the chapter history. For over a millennium, they waged a lonely war against Xenos horrors across the western edges of the galaxy, appearing time and again to defend distant Imperial worlds from certain annihilation. Yet, despite their unblemished record of gallant victories, the specter of calamity followed them, twisting their triumphs into grim legacies of sacrifice that seemed to resonate only with bitterness and loss. Dark rumors gathered like storm clouds over the Lamenters, as fate's merciless hand turned against them time and again. Even when they were called back from the Imperium's distant fringes by the High Lords of Terra in the 39th millennium to defend against the vile incursions from the Eye of Terror, whispers of suspicion and dread followed them. Among Imperial commanders and other chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, the Lamenters' reputation as ill-fortuned outcasts overshadowed even their loyalty. That dark reputation exacted a grim toll during the Chaos Assault on the hive world of Corellia in the 9th Black Crusade. The Mortifactors chapter enslaved the superstitions, spurned the Lamenters, abandoning Corellia rather than risking battle beside them. Left to stand alone, the Lamenters fought on, holding back the relentless Black Legion for 6 harrowing solar weeks, their numbers decimated, until the Ultramarines and White Scars could breach the Chaos Warfleet's blockade to bring relief. By the time the rescue arrived, only 200 Lamenters remained, their bodies and spirits broken. And as if to seal their doom, their fleet soon vanished into a warp storm, leaving all for dead. It was only a century later that they emerged on the edge of the Segmentum Solar, worn yet undaunted, having clawed their way back from the outer void to return to the Imperial space. Rebuilding their chapter and fleet in exile, the Lamenters once more reached full strength and heeded the call of duty as crusades on the Imperium's behalf. By 587 M41, they joined the Maelstrom Warders and patrolled the desolate expanse of the Maelstrom's western edge. Their purpose fixed on scouring chaos and piracy from those cursed zones. During these vigil days, they found rare allies in the Astral Claws chapter, commanded by the last of its masters, Luft Huron. The Astral Claws extended a respect to the Lamenters as they had seldom known, bolstering their ranks with war material and honoring their sacrifices on the field of battle. But this alliance, born of rare camaraderie and bloodshed side by side, would prove their doom. The Lamenters, yearning for fellowship, a bond few others had ever offered them, bound them to a path that would lead only to ruin, as the very friendship they cherished became the shadow that would consume them.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that little bit of their history after we go through some of these campaigns. But just jumping back, this is kind of their vibe. They're like a fleet-based chapter, no homeworld to speak of, and it seems like they do a campaign, they get utterly decimated, and then they disappear for a while on some crazy crusade, and then they just appear, centuries later, and they're like, yeah, we're still kicking. We still got a couple guys.
To have 200 left and then sucked into the warp, deal with the horrors in there, and then have to fight your way back, and then just keep fighting, man. Yeah. Well, then just power to them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, just adds insult to injury, too. You're given the chance to fight alongside another chapter for some relief, and then the Mortifactors here are just like, nah, we out.
See ya. This seems like a losing battle. We'll let you take this one.
Crazy. So some of their notable campaigns, starting with the Siege of Corellia, Ninth Black Crusade. The Ninth Black Crusade launched in 537.M38 by the dreaded Abaddon the Despoiler and his Black Legion, brought chaos to the Imperium as never seen before. The Lamenters, alongside their crusading chapters, were summoned back from the far reaches by the High Lords of Terra to stand against the terrible incursion from the Eye of Terror. Yet the shadows of their dark reputation weighed heavily upon them. When the hive world of Corellia was besieged, the superstitious-bound Mortifactors chapter turned away, refusing to fight alongside the Lamenters and abandoning the planet rather than risking their perceived ill fortunes. Refusing to forsake Corellia's people, the Lamenters held out against the relentless onslaught of the Black Legion alone, their numbers diminishing over 6 agonizing standard weeks until at last the Ultramarines and White Scars broke through the Chaos blockade. But by then, the Lamenters' losses had been staggering, leaving only 200 Astartes alive. As if fate itself could not bear their sacrifice, the Lamenters' fleet vanished into the warp storm soon after, re-emerging over a century later on the Cementum Solar's edge, scarred but unbroken, having clawed their way back from the outer void.
Yeah.
Wow.
The one thing to note about this is, like, we talked about the Black Rage and the Red Thirst and how it kind of turns you into like these berserkers. And this isn't their driving factor to do war. They often want to help like the people. They didn't want to forsake those people on that planet. Like, they think they realize their place in the galaxy of like, unfortunately, we are here to die for the common person.
Yeah, they have a very Salamanders feel to them when it comes to that, like that good guy feel, you know.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotta give him credit.
The next campaign they took note in was the Charadon campaign in 698 M41. In 698 M41, the Lamenters joined an Imperial crusade led by the Ultramarines under Chapter Master Marinius Calgar. Alongside the Angels of Absolution, Marines Errant, and Silver Skulls, they delivered crippling blows to the Orc Empire of Charadon. How would you guys say that one?
Charadon, maybe? Charadon?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Caradon,
Sure.
something like that.
Cool. The 7-year campaign delayed the Wog Arlglux invasion by 3 decades, though the Lamenters saw their triumph with tempered pride, aware that the Orcs would inevitably return. So even that was just like a stopgap measure, essentially. You know, they probably lost a bunch more guys, and they're like, bought some decades for these people.
I mean, that sounds like a typical Tyrannid war, so yeesh. But
I mean, it really shows you also the Imperium's manufactorums to having to constantly resupply these guys with weapons and armor and ships is insane.
Yeah, like I wonder how they manage all the back end logistics of it all, because they don't have a home world to speak of. So are they just going and kind of doing the looting thing, or are they stopping in at nearby Forge Worlds to get recruits? Are they making a lot of their own gear?
Or what if they could even have like Forge World ships, kind of maybe like Forge ships flying with them or something like that? Like, I could only imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I do kind of have a question concerning like their recruitment too, or rebuilding their numbers. Like, only 200 of them are left, and I think it was the first Tyrannic War. Like, the entire first company of the Ultramarines was like basically wiped out, and it took them like, I can't remember the official number, but like decades or centuries to build just 100 back up. So how long would it take them to build up another 800 Lamenters? Just to, I mean, that just sounds, that's just like an impossible task almost.
Yeah, almost. I do kind of look at that Ultramarines first company number as slightly different, because the first company is made up of veterans. So the Ultramarines didn't want to just promote a bunch of people into their first company to restock it. They wanted to actually make sure that their veterans were veterans. So I think that took a little extra time, you know, we know it only takes like, you know, you abduct a kid when he's 13, and by the time they're 20-ish, they're wearing power armor potentially. So it doesn't take that long to get a Space Marine, but Still, you could go
But
to a planet.
800 of them at once, like
801. That's a lot. Yeah.
and going by y'all's metrics, like from previous episodes of like 1 in 1,000 are actually able to make it through the whole process. So
yeah, I thought it was even more than that. I wish I
Maybe.
remembered that number, but then I just imagine like you go to one hive world, and the planet has 1 trillion people on it. I'm sure you could find 800 people potentially on there, or like. I think with that Ultramarine thing, it's just because it was the first company where they're like, okay, we're rebuilding our best of the best. So that is going to take time.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, but behind the curtain, I'm sure they're just constantly cranking out these people's getting them ready,
Yeah. Just abducting children left, right, and center. For
mean,
the Emperor, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we do keep forgetting too, like how stupid big the Imperium actually is and like how many people live in it. So
Yeah, 1,000,000 worlds, man. It's one of those things, like 10,000 years or 1,000,000 worlds. Like you can't truly grasp the scope of it.
So speaking of scopes and the Corinth Crusade, the liberation of Slaughterhouse 3. Is that actually the name?
It's a beautiful planet. It sounds worse than it is.
Okay. Sorry, I'm getting my mind out of video game mode for a second. Okay, here we go. When the Ultramarines called for allies in the Corinth Crusade, the Lamenters answered, honoring a debt felt keenly since the siege of Corellia. A force of 300 Astartes, led by the battle barge Daughter of Tempests, joined the crusade to scourge the eastern fringes of the Orc menace. The Lamenters fought tirelessly, striking down the Orcs in a relentless campaign, but it was on Slaughterhouse 3, an Orc mining world crowded with enslaved humans, that they made their boldest stand. Moved by the plight of the captives on Slaughterhouse 3, the Lamenters petitioned to lead the assault. Calgar reluctantly allowed them to strike alone, unable to spare further forces. The Lamenters swept through Orc defenses with brutal efficiency, shattering resistance and inspiring an uprising among the liberated slaves. Within hours, the planet fell to Imperial hands. Yet their victory bore a grim price. 3 million prisoners looked to the Lamenters for salvation, but the chapter could not evacuate them all. Excuse me. Resolute, the Lamenters prepared to defend these souls to the death. Aztec Marines struggled to restore captured Orc vessels to flee. In the bloody days that followed, waves of Orc starships and fighter bombers descended, testing the Lamenters' endurance. Many of their numbers succumbed to the Black Rage, driven by desperation and loss. Eventually, the freed prisoners, realizing the Lamenters' hopeless plight, made one final plea: to receive the Emperor's peace rather than suffer capture again. With no other recourse, the Lamenters enacted the last harrowing mercy, detonating hundreds of seismic charges within the mines, sealing Slaughterhouse 3 as an immense tomb, sanctified in fire. Ooh.
Yikes.
Dang. Fewer than 100 Lamenters survived the retreat, fleeing the system on the battered Daughter of Tempests with a handful of converted Orc transports, bearing a fraction of those that they had fought to free. Strategically, the mission was a resounding success, as the mine's destruction set back Orc war material production and sowed conflict among the Orc clans. Yet the cost was bitter. When Marnius Calgar offered the honor of an iron halo, the Lamenters declined, a decision that further strained their ties with Imperial allies, stoking suspicion and dark whispers among those who already doubted the chapter's loyalty. To the Lamenters, the honor was hollow. I have something to say about that later. To the Lamenters, the honor was hollow, an echo of the suffering they could not ignore, as they bore forward the weight of both victory and loss, each deeply etched upon their shattered hearts. So I can understand why they feel they were not deserving of the Iron Halo, but this is the chapter master of the Ultramarines. I don't feel like he's one you could actually say no to and not come off disrespectful. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, and I can imagine too, like the Lamenters are known for being like melancholy, so even like the way they talk and like, well, this is why we don't think we deserve the Iron Halo, because we actually weren't able to save this planet, I'm sure they're not going into that kind of detail with Calgary, they're probably just like, well, we tried. We didn't do it though. You know, like I'm sure they weren't really justifying them to him. It's interesting how often the Lamenters do team up with different chapters and stuff. It seems like maybe because they only have so few numbers that they always kind of tag along with other people and almost get the shit duties. But yeah, they seem to always go around with people for sure.
Yeah, they definitely get the short end of the stick, it seems. Kind of everyone not really looking too favorably on them. And they're out there just trying to save all these humans and do whatever they can. And man, not giving a whole lot of hope, really.
Yeah, the planet Slaughterhouse 3 and orcs. Orcs are often looked at like the comical relief in 40K, but we often don't think about how grim dark they really are. We got this planet of human slaves, essentially. And yeah, you know, you're picturing them toiling in the mines. But also, I bet this was a huge food supply for the orcs, these humans. Well, you know, the word slaughterhouse, I picture a cow slaughterhouse. So if that's an orc planet and they're just slaughtering all these humans for food, it's like you go work in the mine and then you come work in my belly. It's just this like crazy kind of take on orcs of this whole planet food source where, yikes, you don't want to be involved.
And
so
3
yeah,
million
and then even the people are like, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and even those people, they're like, we don't want to be captured again. We can't go back to watching our brothers, sisters, parents be eaten or work in the mines at best case scenario.
I mean, we like to think of the orcs as the comic relief of the setting, but they can be pretty terrifying too. Like with this and other stories of what they do to human slaves is pretty.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not humanely killing the slaves before they eat them. I'm sure that's not a nice little, you know, bolt to the head like we do a cow.
If you can run, you might be fast food.
Shit. This is true.
But yeah, you think while all these people are slaving away in the mines, you think they're being fed or watered? Probably not, honestly.
Probably not, man. Like, I just don't see how they would. I'm sure the orcs don't care to do that. Like, I'm sure they're just living on whatever kind of mold or like weird thing, alcohol, fungus, beer they can make or whatever, you know. They're just, these people are just trying to survive, but
yeah,
not very
well.
well.
I mean, I have heard stories of like orcs will feed some of their prisoners, but oftentimes it's like it's waste, like waste. Ooh. Exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, eat this bomb squig.
Oh,
delicious.
Delicious.
It's like, what do you call this soup? A deconstruction of my last meal.
Oh God. Deconstructed Greg.
Yeah, awesome. Well, next up we've got Jericho's Reach. In the late 41st millennium, the Lamenters chapter became involved in the Achilles Crusade, fulfilling a 1,000-year-old honor debt by escorting rogue trader Kazandus Lan. For over a decade, 4 squads of Lamenters served besides Lan's forces, carrying out the daring boarding actions against archenemy vessels throughout the Outer Reach. However, in 812.M41, tragedy struck as their ship suffered a catastrophic drive failure near the Fallon's Lament system, leaving only a handful of survivors. Learning of the disaster, Watch Commander Mordigale of the Death Watch saw potential in the remaining Lamenters, offering them a place in the long vigil. The survivors banded together to form a kill team under Watch Captain Brand MacLear of the Storm Wardens chapter, while others integrated within the Death Watch cells, each fighting alongside battle brothers from other chapters across the Reach.
Yeah, just another one of these times where they're shown to work alongside somebody. And yeah, they say 4 squads. And was that like all that they had left at that point?
You know, one thing I'm picking up is they keep being almost annihilated. They come back, and then again and again. It's just this endless cycle. I mean, if anything would make you feel melancholy, it's probably that, knowing that the history of just being constantly destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, we have a well-honored history, long in tradition.
I mean, forget like overt mutations or whatever curse that came from the curse founding. Their curse was just bad luck Brian personified.
Man, it's weird when you like play video games and they have all the stats and then they have the luck stat and like you have no idea what it does in this game. But like they clearly didn't put any stats into that one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you walk into a crypt and you see all the names just embellished onto the stones. I'm sure, like on their chapter fortress ship, it's just like a mile-long corridor of all these names of all these Astartes that have come and
Yeah.
gone.
They've had to like add on mobile trailers. They almost like Space Hulk their own ship just for like their own memorial sites on there. Like,
Is that the like how to get their own battle barge just as a memorial battle barge?
we got a comment here from Moose. Or are they lamenting not being the ones that had the good fortune of dying in the service of the Emperor? Yeah, so the survivors they have survivor's guilt, and they're just like, I wish it was me. I wish I could have died for the Emperor that day. But tomorrow's another day, and we can try again.
Only in death does duty end.
Mm-hmm. The Badab War. This is where it really gets wild from, and this deserves a whole episode in and of itself. But I think I covered a lot of the good highlights involving the Lamenters in this. But yeah, we'll eventually do a Badab War. The Badab War, 901-912 M41. As the Badab War erupted in the late 41st millennia, the Lamenters allied themselves with the Astral Claws, Mantis Warriors, and Executioners chapters. They believed their struggle to be in the defense of the Adeptus Astartes autonomy for the corruption within the Imperium. By 908 M41, the Lamenters had endured severe attrition from prolonged deployments defending the Badab sector. Recognizing their vulnerability, the Loyalist Minotaur chapter targeted their Lamenters flagship, Mater Lacrium, discovering resupplying above the feral world of Oputa. In a lightning assault, the Minotaurs crippled the ship's plasma drives, and a brutal siege ensued. For 17 relentless hours, the Lamenters defended their barge, knowing it held their wounded and their precious gene seed. Outnumbered and outmatched, the Lamenters were ultimately overpowered, forced to surrender. They saw most of their fleet destroyed, leaving only 311 surviving battle brothers, who were interred on the prison hulk over Sagan II, where rumors of a growing madness took hold. In the aftermath, with their forces shattered and their fleet salvaged by the Minotaur, the Lamenters were essentially removed from the successionist ranks. Following the loyalist victory of the Badab Primaris, that's like the lead capital planet of this segment or whatever, the High Lords convened a constitutorial court to try to... The High Lords convened a constitutorial court to try the successionist chapters, determining their fate. Though found guilty of breaking with the Codex Astartes, the court saw that the Lamenters had not fallen to chaos, but had acted from pride in defending their autonomy, granted them forgiveness, and the chapter was ordered to undertake a 100-year penitent crusade, which they could not recruit new neophytes to replace their heavy losses, placing their survival entirely in the Emperor's hands. When the Lamenters were forgiven, their tattered chapter banner was given to the Adeptus Astartes, who purified and repaired it with utmost reverence. Inspired by the Emperor's great sacrifice, they named the banner of Tears, which the Lamenters would carry with them on their journey of penance. The story of the Badab War is like Horus Heresy 2.0. The Horus Heresy started because Astartes basically wanted to be autonomous, and they were worried what would happen to them in the future when, war was over. They worried that they were the ones fighting on the front line, dying without getting any of the benefit of the future, essentially. So during the Badab War, the Astral Claws, like the leader of this kind of operation, the leader of this segmentum, he kind of was sick of paying his tithes, sick of paying his taxes. So then he took a bunch of kind of side chapters and kind of lured them, not necessarily to chaos right away, but just kind of like that autonomy, that individual kind of nature. And that was kind of what happened. They joined the wrong side. They kind of fell to that kind of false lie, and then they kind of bit it. They chose the wrong side and had to go on a 100-year long crusade.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's almost justified though a little bit. Not the going on the crusade, but wanting to set yourself up in the future, kind of looking out for yourself. How many times has this chapter been just pushed off to the side from the rest of the chapters and the Imperium in general? So I can see that kind of wanting to look out for yourself too a little bit.
And I think
Yeah.
if I remember the lore correct, the Astral Claws who end up becoming the Red Corsairs, they're technically renegade, but they still don't necessarily fall to chaos. They're not like your Iron Warriors or your Emperor's Children, but they're definitely against the Imperium, but they're not chaos, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like the Astral Claws become the Red Corsairs. They're more like pirates, more pirate corsairs than chaos. At the beginning of it, anyways,
I just want to say too, we've got an amazing comment in the chat. It says, "I feel that Lamenters talk like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh." Now that you say that, I have that visual in my head. Why bother?
Oh man, here I go crusading again.
Oh no, the Black Rage is hit. Blood. Raw.
I like it.
Speaking of raging, we have speaking of raging, if you don't like bugs, well, how about the Second Tyrannic War? In the aftermath of the Badab War, the Lamenters embarked on their penitent crusade, only to find themselves directly in the path of High Fleet Kraken. The relentless Tyrannid swarm became the latest test of the chapter's endurance. Despite their dedication, the Lamenters suffered devastating losses while attempting to delay the High Fleet's advance. On the planet Malvolian, the Lamenters enacted a heroic last stand, giving their lives to buy time for the evacuation of countless Imperial civilians from a world overrun by Tyrannid organisms. In the wake of their battles, the chapter was left barely clinging to survival, with only 4 companies intact. Bound by the terms of their crusade, they remained unable to recruit new neophytes. Whether the Lamenters would survive to replenish their ranks or have their banner enshrined in the Hallway of Heroes on Terra was uncertain.
I think we got to change the meta of 40K right now, The Salamanders, we can no longer say that they're like the number one good guys for Space Marines. I think it's the Lamenters, man. Every time I read about them, they're off sacrificing their lives again for the population. And they're like, we know we're going to get fucked from this one, but and we can't even recruit after we get fucked from this one, but we're still going to do it because that's what we're called to do. Where the Salamanders, yeah, they will, they kind of have a bond with their planet and they look out for kind of Imperial citizens, but I don't think they're sacrificing themselves in this same way,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I imagine the High Lords of Terra sitting behind a desk and they're marking off all the losses from the Lamenters, and then like, man, taking off so many. You know what? We're gonna make it more challenging. They need to work a little bit harder. No new recruits.
No new recruits. Well, that was just somebody trying to get lazy around his paperwork. He's like, holy shit, they lose a lot. Like, let's just get rid of these guys.
Just mountains of paperwork behind them.
Mountains of paperwork,
yeah, exactly.
and then just like the 13th Black Crusade, and then Tyrannid Fleet Kraken happened.
Yeah, geez, isn't that the case? It's just one bad thing after another.
Oh boy. Well, up next we've got the Hunter's Turn. And that is 993.m41. Following their brutal encounters with High Fleet Kraken, the Lamenters were reduced to just 3 companies worth of battle brothers. The Red Hunters chapter, tasked with shadowing the Lamenters on their century-long penitent crusade, also suffered considerable losses as they joined the Lamenters in their desperate struggle against the Tyranids.
Yeah, they really can rebuild their chapter quick. Like, I'm looking at some of the dates between these, and there was only 1 year between this and the second Tyrannic War that we talked about. And then the next one, the Badab War, was okay, that one was like 80 years before that, but still, that's not that long. And like, it seems, yeah, they just keep rebuilding. So they must have one hell of a recruitment drive, officer.
Oh yeah. Just almost like conveyor belts of just constant recruits coming in.
Yeah, for real.
They got some overworked and underpaid apothecaries for sure.
Up next, we got the War for Aberrus System. Unknown date, M42. So this is kind of almost like where one of the last things we've heard about them, one of the last things I could find anyways. As the 42nd millennium dawned, the Lamenters once again took up arms, joining the strike force led by Captain Nicaros of the Iron Lord's Second Company. This coalition, which included elements of the Knights of the Raven and Scythes of the Emperor, were crucial to defending the Aberrus system from the assault by another tendril of Hive Fleet Kraken. The presence of these Astartes forces bolstered the Imperial morale and stabilized the region. However, unbeknownst to them, Inquisitor Shalalasa Talares of the Ordo Xenos had learned of a second, far larger tendril of the Hive Fleet Kraken fleet poised to descend on Aberrus. She feared that if left unchecked, this massive swarm could move toward the Grendel stars, claiming that the genetic material of the hyperviolent Baragashi, a terrifying prospect that would jeopardize the entire eastern fringe. I think I need to do a quick Google search on what the Bargassi are. I think I recall reading them, but they sound like they have something unique going on about them.
Yeah, I can't honestly recall off the top of my head exactly what they are.
So there are, according to some Imperial texts, they are extraordinarily aggressive and violent, intelligent alien species that inhabit the Grendel stars of the region. There's only a couple paragraphs on them, but they just keep saying that they're violent and very smart. So that's not a good combination, I guess.
Just sounds like Xenos filth to me. Time to purge. But I guess enough about crusades and purging. So let's talk about how the Lamenters are organized. Organization. The Lamenters, despite their turbulent history, remain true successors of the Blood Angels, inheriting the rich martial traditions and formidable combat prowess of Sanguinius's lineage. Like many chapters, they follow the Codex Astartes, theoretically consisting of 10 companies, each with 100 Astartes. These include a standard organization of 1 veteran company, a scout company, 4 battle companies, and reserve companies for tactical, assault, and devastator squads. However, the Lamenters rarely engage as a unified force, with the exception of the 10th Scout Company, whose members have yet to achieve full Astartes status. Instead, the chapter prefers to deploy flexible strike forces composed of units drawn from across its companies, adapting their structure to meet specific operational demands. The fleet-based nature of the chapter further enhances this adaptability, with recruits drawn from feudal worlds and distant imperial colonies encountered in their travels.
Yeah, so these are all firstborn roles, like tactical, assault, and devastators. They do get Primaris Marines eventually, and I'm sure now, since there's only fucking 20 guys in the chapter, they're all Primarisified anyways at this point. But you never know, man. Maybe they just don't have the resources to do that. I really couldn't find too much information on them after the whole kind of Cicadrix Maledictum kind of open. Like, what are their thoughts on Primaris? Like, I definitely know they have them. I've seen them, but
yeah, I think in the 10th edition Codex, Space Marine Codex does have them listed as having Primaris units, but I can't remember. I don't remember any information beyond that.
Yeah, like a thing to consider too about that is, since they're a fleet-based chapter, it's not like when they were sending out a bunch of black shields to reinforce the whole galaxy of Primaris Marines. Like, they're a fleet-based chapter, so good luck finding them, first of all, because they're off crusading off in the far reaches of the galaxy. So even just that nature of the chapter would mean that they probably wouldn't have as many of them. Yeah, just kind of that's my thought on that.
Do you think they get a lot of recruits for the Rubicon? Because don't you have to be like almost dying or like mortally wounded?
Yeah,
to become Primaris.
That's interesting. Like, is that actually how that works, or is that just kind of like a last ditch effort? So it's like that seems to be the most common way to become a Primaris, but it's more like you are mortally wounded, so you are gonna die or you're gonna cross the Rubicon. Those are your options. So it's not necessarily that they can only do it to mortally wounded people. It's just that seems who they're gonna do it on.
Right.
from,
Yeah.
from
But
what I remember, from what I remember reading about the Rubicon process, there is that chance that you'll die anyways. So I'm guessing the thought process is, well, you're almost dead. We can give this a try, and if you're dead, well, you're dead. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you wouldn't want to waste one of your precious Marines just in case, like one of your top tier guys just in case. And even some of the main heroes, they talk about that before they cross the Rubicon, about kind of being like, I hope I have what it takes to cross, even though they're like, you're Calgar, of course you have what it takes.
unless you're Dante, I was promised death. Why am I still here?
Why do I still live? We got a quick question here or a comment from Jacob. I wonder if the AdMech got too hopeful making their initial gene seed with defect and just produced a ton. But whoops, horrible luck. So they have a stockpile of new gene seed for new recruits. And yeah, maybe there is kind of some of that where like maybe that was some of the fallout where when they were reproducing the gene seed or remaking or whatever, they just tried to make a bunch in a bunch of different ways, and they just had a bunch. That is definitely speculation and stuff. But it's interesting to kind of think like, how do they repopulate so quickly always?
Yeah, I think it's funny too when you talk about the like the Blood Angels gene seed and the Lamenters gene seed with the AdMech, that the AdMech have they figured out a way to so the Lamenters aren't hit by the Black Rage and the Thirst, but then they don't really tell the Blood Angels about it. They just let the Lamenters be the successor chapter without those deficiencies.
Yeah.
That still sounds very AdMech-y to me, though. They have it because they have a tendency to kind of like hide their precious knowledge or their technology and not tell anybody, even if it really would benefit their allies.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that hoarding of knowledge, or even just like lack of how to explain the knowledge, kind of. You apply the sacred oils. Like, you're not qualified to apply the sacred oils. I'm barely even qualified to apply the sacred oils. So it's like they're not really sharing how to do things necessarily. Yeah, even with like the tech priests and stuff, it's like this whole kind of like dual citizenship thing of Astartes and AdMech, where, you know, they go off to Mars itself and train. And oftentimes their loyalty is to Mars first. Like, they're not going to turn on their chapter. But like, who are they going to pick? Those tech priests, tech Marines.
I know this is more of like a AdMech question, but that's kind of bring up a point of just like you hear about like AdMech being seconded to or assigned to certain Astartes chapters. How does that whole thing work as far as like, I guess, recruitment, quote unquote? Like, do they, like what we talked about with their neophytes, did they just stop by a Forge World, say, hey, we need some new tech priests, come on board, or that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I have a necessarily good answer. Nick, do you might have a thought?
I honestly don't know. I could see the maybe being requisitioned and like, hey, you're done working over here. We're going to put you over with the Lamenters. With, I mean, how much of? Oh, I know it would be like the worst thing ever for some of those Mechanicus guys. But you hear all these stories about their fleets being destroyed, being sucked into the warp, and you're loaded onto a ship and sent their way.
You have displeased the Omnissiah. Your punishment is assignment to the Lamenters. No!
It's either that or grind your limbs down to the stump.
I'll take the grinding. Please.
But a Mechanicus would want that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Some more organization. Due to an uncommon stability in their gene seed, the Lamenters have been classified as Codex compliant for most of their history. However, their fleet-based existence has required tactical flexibility, especially when isolated detachments must function with limited resources. Moreover, the Lamenters' grim reputation has often deprived them of Imperial support, fostering a fierce self-reliance and independence in their ranks. Okay, here's another question. Wasn't it brought up before that, like, most Space Marine chapters, it takes a huge campaign for them to operate at full force, because otherwise it's just like they only operate at like maybe a squad or barely a company level?
Yeah, like you're Yeah, if you see more than a Astartes squad, it's like if you're in a guardsman on a planet and you're hanging out in the trenches and then you see one Astartes, you're like, oh shit, just got serious. Then you see like two, then you're like, uh-oh. And then you see a whole company, you're like, oh, I'm not going to survive this. Like, if they're calling in that, yikes. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, if I was a guardsman, the last thing I'd want to see is an Astartes, let alone two or more.
Well, if it's Grey Knights, it will be the last thing you see. So,
or at least remember seeing.
Yeah, right.
The Lamenters are known for their resilience in the face of relentless misfortune, which has imparted a uniquely pragmatic outlook on both their tactical approach and recruitment. Their battle doctrine emphasizes shock assault with Thunderhawk and Stormraven gunships deployed in swift air assaults to deliver decisive strikes. In terms of equipment, the Lamenters' fleet-based status favors easily maintained Space Marine standard gear. They lack a home port and thus rely heavily on artificers, maintaining fewer heavy vehicles like Land Raiders and Ball Predators than other Blood Angel successors. While they possess a cherished few sanguinary relics, Terminator armor is exceptionally rare and valued beyond measure within the chapter. Like their forebearers, the Lamenters' chaplains serve within the chapter's command structure rather than being assigned individually to companies, allowing them to monitor and address signs of the Red Thirst among the Battle Brothers. The sanguinary priesthood, known among the Lamenters as the Calyx, I want to say Calyx, plays a particularly influential role, not only in maintaining the physical health of the chapter, but in tending to the spiritual afflictions they carry. Many believe the Calyx has been instrumental in preserving the unity and resolve of the chapter through the unending trials they endure.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're definitely like, it's one thing to recruit another Astartes. It's another thing to build tanks and build a bunch of vehicles and all that, maintain all that. So they definitely are lacking a lot of that heavy kind of gear, heavy equipment and all that. And
Yeah, that kind of brings us back into the whole logistics of it that we were talking about. Like, how can they possibly, supply all this material? Well, they do it by cutting down on the amount of tanks that you can get, the amount of armor. We're going to give you some power armor. We're going to give you a bolt rifle. That's about it.
yeah, ammo too, right? Right?
Yeah.
No,
if you're lucky.
Yeah. You got to share that ammo pack now. Spend it wisely.
You get a bolt, and you get a bolt. Just one, though.
All right, some of you gentlemen, you have to share one bolt together. Okay, so just line up. There you go.
It reminds me of what's that movie, Enemy at the Gates, where they give the first guy a rifle and the second guy the ammo. Oof. And just send everyone in like that.
Oh no,
Russians, man! Fuck.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Have a little bit of a callback to your guys' last episode.
yeah. Kind of. Oh, sweet historians.
No.
Crazy C4 says, "LOL, why grinding?" Well, let me tell you a story about the grim dark. Come around, children. The Mechanicum like to grind your limbs off to replace them with bionic limbs. Why? Grimdark? There's not rule of cool if you choose, but yeah, no, they'll literally just grind your bones to the stub and then give you a bionic leg, which is the most fucking crazy thing in my mind. I would hate that.
No, the flesh is weak, so get rid of it.
Adios.
You're lucky if they stop at the stump, just keep going, and then next thing you know, like 80% of you is just robotic at that point.
Yeah, that's how you become the servo skulls. Oh, somebody got carried away with the grinding. Just got the head left.
So going from the organization of the Lamenters, we're going to talk a little bit about their appearance. So chapter colors, the Lamenters' power armor originally featured a vibrant yellow adorned with a red stripe on the helm. The right shoulder plate showcased a distinctive black and white checkerboard pattern as the backdrop for the chapter's emblems. In recent years, the chapter armor has shifted to a deeper mustard yellow. The checkerboard pattern and chapter badge have moved to the left shoulder plate, reflecting the chapter's evolving heraldry. On the right pauldron, the Lamenters display their black squad symbol, denoting roles like battle line, close support, fire support, veteran, or command. Centered within the symbol is the white low Gothic number representing the squad number. The Codex Astartes prescribes the left knee plate color to identify company affiliation. The original red helm stripe has since been removed from their color scheme. So I wonder, as we're talking about this too, how many of them actually get the chance to become veterans if they're dying out in such large numbers. Maybe the 20 that keep surviving in the small squads are the same squads just over and over again.
Yeah.
Let's take a tally of our losses here. Hey there, Jim Bob. You made it past your first engagement. All right, 2 more engagements. You get a chance at being a veteran. All right, go get him, Tiger.
Our longest serving member, Brother Stallius, has served with us for 2 years. Honor to our brother. We got a comment from Jacob. Masochist army for painting yellow and checkerboard. Yeah, definitely Google a picture of them, because it's the most atrocious color scheme in all of 40K to paint. I don't know if you boys have painted yellow before, but I've done some.
I have. It's a nightmare.
I've seen some cool techniques nowadays where it's like, back in the day we used to just spray paint all our models black no matter what. But I've seen some cool ones where they do spray painted orange maybe, and then they go from there. There's a couple cool ways to get around painting yellow nowadays, but it still is a pain.
I think I heard the technique was like you can either do orange or pink, surprisingly enough, as like a base color, and then you painting yellow over top of that's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
See, you guys are missing out. I just soak my minis in actual mustard and then let it sit there for like 2 days, and then when you pull it out, you got the authentic. It even has like a slight mustard smell.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
A master of your craft, no doubt.
It's years of experimenting. Anyway, so going back to that 2-year veteran we were talking about, is their chapter badge. The Lamenters chapter badge remains iconic, a bleeding heart framed by a black and white checkerboard symbolizing their enduring struggles and sacrifice.
Yeah, that's funny. The bleeding heart just kind of really hits it on the head there.
Oh yeah.
What came first? Like did they do this to themselves? Like, did they work it up in their mind? Like, yeah, what kind of chapter badge? And they came up with this design, and then like bad luck followed after that. Like, fuck, chicken or egg?
I've got a question for you, Mark. Who is the bigger emo in 40K, Conrad Kurz or the Lamenters?
Yeah, let's go with Kurz for sure. Conrad Kurz. Don't forget Korax, but I still think Kurz takes this.
Yeah. Like the Lamenters don't necessarily seem depressed. They more seem like consigned to their fate and okay with it. Like they're like, yeah, this is just what it is. Like it's melancholy. It's not depression. It's just like, this is what we do. Okay, so this is like the big fucking thing with every chapter. Now we're going to jump into some gene seed, and we can really get crazy with all the things that happen to them. Is luck a gene seed condition? We'll find out more. It appears that the gene seed of the Lamenters may have been altered during its creation by the Adeptus Mechanicus. The full extent of these modifications conducted on Mars was likely even hidden from the High Lords of Terra and the chapter masters of the other Adeptus Astartes, a theory bolstered by a political turmoil and division that plagued the Imperium during the early days of the 36th millennium. I think this too was during like the time of Goj Vandire and his whole big like ecclesiarchal rebellion, heresy type situation. So yeah, the times were very turbulent. So there was probably a bunch of people during this time that were like either doing crazy things that they wouldn't normally get away of, or they were playing a side thinking like, okay, I'm going to play George's side for now, and then hopefully no one knows, and I'll do some stuff, and hopefully he's the winner, but maybe I'll just not tell anyone, and if he loses, I'll go back to the Imperium. It's kind of interesting time where all these kind of wild things can happen and people start experimenting. It is probable that the experimental procedures performed on the Lamenters gene seed were conducted with at least the tacit approval of the progenitor chapter, the Blood Angels, who have long sought answers to their dual afflictions of the Red Thirst and Black Rage. Records from the 21st founding suggest that the efforts to mitigate the effects of the flaw were partially successful, as the number of Lamenters Astartes succumbing to the red thirst over the centuries has been notably small. However, it soon became evident that certain peculiarities of the mind and temperament developed within the Lamenters, growing more pronounced with each passing year. A dark melancholy took root in the chapter's soul, leading their fellow scions of Sanguinius to believe that the Lamenters felt the grief of their Primarch's death more acutely than other Blood Angel successors chapter. Daddy wasn't there to take them to the fair, to change their underwear, and now they're sad. However, it soon became evident that I read that one. Regardless of the truth, ill fortune began to shadow the Lamenters like an unwanted specter. Over time, there was a noticeable increase in both the Lamenters' inclination towards melancholy and the frequency with the red thirst afflicts the Astartes. Reports suggest that the Blood Angel's genetic flaw have worsened to varying degrees among the Blood Angel successor chapters over the years. It remains uncertain whether the Lamenters will endure long enough to commence the recruitment of new neophytes to replace their heavy losses inflicted by High Fleet Kraken.
Yeah, I just imagine a Blood Angel and a Lamenter shouting at each other, saying, "No, I feel Sanguinius's pain more. No, I do." And then, boom, they both have the Black Rage.
Oh.
Wait a second. Horus? How dare you? Die, traitor!
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, like, yeah, we were saying the Black Rage is like, it's like this vision of you becoming Sanguinius and fighting Horus in that battle and then dying. And then the red thirst is kind of like this bloodthirst rage afterwards. It's like the hatred, I guess, of knowing your Primarch died. So when the AdMech were like experimenting with this gene seed, it's kind of interesting that they removed the Black Rage, kind of these visions or whatever, yet so they don't see it anymore. They're not like active in it. They're not actually present, but instead now they feel it in a different way. It affects them differently instead of like actually happening to them and them thinking that they become Sanguinius. They're like, Dad's dead. Like it's this different kind of vibe.
He's not dead. He just left to get milk.
Yeah, it's definitely less of a mental thing and more like an emotional feeling. Like they're emotionally feeling his death.
Yeah. And then that drives them mad. They don't like to feel, I guess. And then they go on a red thirst rampage. But it seems like, okay, so, 4,000 years ago, this chapter was created and it seemed like it was okay. But then they started suffering all these like bad luck situations, which, you can't necessarily blame the gene seed for. But as time progresses, like we're saying, 4,000 years is a long time. So that gene seed is slowly becoming more and more corrupt over the time, and we're starting to see more and more side effects of it. It will be interesting to see like when or if we ever get a lot more information about the Lamenters in like the new era of 40K with the Indomitus era and Reboot Gilliman and Primaris Marines, and if that will kind of tamper down these effects again like it does in other chapters. And this tampering down of the effects, like will it spring up in another way like that? Yeah, they got rid of the Black Rage, but now they're all emotionally sad because of it. Melancholy.
Yeah, so it goes back to what we were talking about before. So it's like you're fixing one problem, but then you're creating like 5 others in the process.
Yeah.
So I guess before we go to the next part, I think, Nick, this question was directed at you. What else have you done with mustard? This is from Moose, by the way.
Reveal your secrets.
Yeah. Right. I mean, besides dying minis, I don't know. I'm gonna play a Belisarius call here and kind of keep things to myself. We'll keep it in secret.
Glorious.
For legal reasons, that's probably the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want Lorehammer Legal coming after me. So.
No, God,
no, we don't want that. Anyways, back to Lamenters, culture and traditions. The Lamenters, as a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, have a unique culture and set of traditions shaped by their history, their connection to their Primarch Sanguinius, and the burdens they bear as a successor chapter. Melancholic nature. The Lamenters are deeply affected by the death of their Primarch Sanguinius. This loss has cultivated a pervasive sense of melancholy within the chapter. Their emotional state influences their decision-making, camaraderie, and rituals, often reflecting themes of loss and sacrifice. So, again, back to the melancholy, the Eeyore, so to speak.
Yeah. I did just Google melancholy to get like the exact definition. Like we all know what it kind of means roughly, but the exact definition is causing or tending to cause sadness or depression of mind or spirit.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Okay, sí.
Sí, senor. Veneration of Sanguinius. Lamenters hold a profound reverence for Sanguinius, their progenitor. They celebrate his virtues such as honor, nobility, and sacrifice through rituals that honor his memory. This includes memorial services and prayers to invoke his spirit in times of need. I can only imagine how long these memorial services last, given the numbers that they lose.
Yeah, man, you're reading off 100 names and their deeds, and you're just like, "Ooh." Good thing their deed lists are so short because they die real quick. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of them, but they weren't very successful.
The fallen Marines who served in the Badab War, their names listed as follows.
Yeah.
Okay. Ceremonial mourning.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I do like that aspect of them taking on that aspect of Sanguinius, of the sacrifice that he did. And that's like such a huge thing where, you know, would the emperor ever defeated Horus if Sanguinius didn't create that chink in his armor and give up his life? And it's just like that continuation of the like father, like son, you know, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, just like their Gene father did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sanguinius was always portrayed as the most honor and noblest of the Primarchs, and you know they're really trying to cement this kind of image for themselves, regardless of how the other Astartes kind of see them.
Yeah, like even in the Badab War, like the High Lords of Terror afterwards, they recognized like, okay, like you guys weren't traitors, you were kind of misled, you were still noble and honorable, so like just go on 100-year crusade.
And just to give you more work, no new recruits.
No new recruits. No new friends.
And then High Fleet, Kraken happened. Ceremonial mourning. The Lamenters practice rituals of mourning not only for their fallen brethren, but also for the losses endured by the Imperium. These rituals often involve wearing black or dark colors, echoing their grief. They may engage in solemn gatherings where stories of their fallen brothers are recounted, fostering a sense of unity through shared sorrow. So, a already long ceremony for the fallen just got even longer because of the rest of the Imperium's losses.
Yeah, that's why they keep disappearing for so long. It's like they're not actually doing anything. They're just trying to finish off their ceremony.
It's like, are you ready to partake in this crusade, brother? We're not done with the ceremony yet. Hold on.
Let's just go into the warp for 100 years to get a little bit of breathing room so we can complete this, and then we'll come back and help you guys.
So that's what it's all about. Banners of honor. The chapter places significant importance on their banners, which are seen as symbols of their honor and duty. Each banner tells the story of the battles fought and the sacrifices made. The restoration and maintenance of these banners, such as the Banner of Tears, is a sacred duty performed by the Sisters Pronatus, emphasizing the chapter's connection to the ecclesiarchy.
I've never heard of the Sisters Pronatus before. I just pulled up some stuff on them. They're a non-militant order of the Adeptus Astartes. The order are considered a range of minor orders who have the duty to locate any relics and sacred items. Once discovered, these objects are acquired and brought to the ecclesiarchy's care. So they're basically like relic hunters, and they're Indiana Jones but female, I guess, in space.
Sign me. I mean, I'm all for that. So.
Oh yeah, that'd be a really cool setting for some stories to be like one of these relic hunters just trying to track down some of these different things.
Yeah.
Combat and honor. The Lamenters take great pride in their martial prowess, viewing battle as a means to honor those they have lost. They often engage in missions deemed hopeless or sacrificial, believing that their fallen brothers would want them to fight fiercely for the Imperium no matter the odds. So that goes back to the sacrifice. They're for the little guy, they're for the Imperium. All that good stuff.
Yeah. They want to be like Sanguinius.
Daddy. Ceremonial rites of passage. Initiates undergo rigorous rites of passage to become full-fledged battle brothers. These rituals often involve trials that test their combat abilities and mental fortitude, culminating in a ceremony that acknowledges their new status within the chapter. Gene seed anxieties. The chapter's unique gene seed flaws, such as the Black Rage and the Red Thirst, have shaped their culture. They engage in rituals to maintain these afflictions, and this often involves meditation and the sharing of experiences among brothers to strengthen their resolve against the rage that threatens to consume them. I gotta say, this sounds a lot like group therapy, which you don't really hear about in the grim darkness of the far future.
And how did that battle make you feel? Bad.
You just have a Lamenter with his helmet off on like a therapy couch while another one has a little notebook jotting different ideas.
Oh man. There is one thing in like real life though, like when you go through the shit with somebody, there's that like unbreakable bond, you know, when you've gone through something with somebody else, and like, yeah, they all have this kind of shared experience of going through it together that just draws them together. And I would imagine it keeps them from succumbing to like the rage and stuff. Like, you know, if you know your brothers are there with you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this really strikes as like in the US, like some states you have like VA support groups or whatnot. So this rings very similar to that kind of setup.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the secret to overcoming the Black Rage. It's just group therapy.
Just group therapy.
We cracked the case. We cracked the case.
Somebody let the Blood Angels know.
Somebody tell them.
And the Flesh Terrors too.
Community and brotherhood. Brotherhood is a cornerstone of Lamenter's culture. They foster strong bonds among battle brothers, emphasizing loyalty, respect, and support. This camaraderie is vital for coping with their shared grief and the weight of their battles.
Yeah, like, and there's only 10 of them, so like, you know everyone in the chapter really well because there's only 10 of you. It's not like other chapters where there's a whole schwack of them.
Aesthetic and symbolism. Their colors, particularly the dark mustard yellow armor or just straight up mustard as painted by Nick, symbolize their struggle against the darkness of their past. The chapter's insignia, a bleeding heart, reflects both their compassion and their ongoing sorrow, serving as a reminder of the lives lost in the pursuit of duty. Mm-hmm. Tales of valor and tragedy. The Lamenters cherish storytelling as a means of preserving their history. Tales of past heroes, both triumphant and tragic, are passed down through generations, teaching new brothers about sacrifice, honor, and the heavy burdens they carry.
Yeah. Yeah, like I would imagine there are factors that happen when you get the gene seed. Like, yeah, you might become more brave or heroic, but there's still things that you need to teach. And that sacrifice is a big one, it seems like, where it's just like, this is what we do. Like, this is what we're called to do. Don't get confused. Like, we're not just warriors. We're here to die for the Emperor. Like, yeah, they probably beat that into them just so when it comes to that moment where they're in that tough decision, they can revert back to all those indoctrinating moments where it's like, well, Brother John died and you will too. And it's a good thing.
Charging into battle, just thinking in your head, I'm going to be the next story in that group therapy session.
Exactly. Remember, guys, we're not space wolves. We're not just big badass Vikings that go on these glorious sagas.
So I want to know too, are there apothecaries just working overtime trying to recover gene seeds from all these dead bodies?
Yeah. Or they're just like, fuck it. Like I just don't know how you lose that many guys, man, and like how you would recover that much and still have guys. The way Gene Seed works, though, too, is like there are 2 Gene Seeds at every space remake. So even if they don't recover the one when they die, they still can recreate one guy. But to rebuild a chapter, yeah, you would need to probably recover quite a few.
Oh yeah, especially with the amount of that they are recovering, the amount of people that they're needing to rebuild their chapter.
High turnover rate.
Mm-hmm. What exactly is the threshold of like how many can you actually lose as a chapter before you're declared like you may as well be extinct? There's no coming back. Like,
yeah,
that's
like the Lamenters were down to 40 guys at one point, like 4 squads, and you know, everyone else probably gave up hope on them, but I don't think they ever gave up hope on themselves. I think it would have to really do with like the determination of the chapter, because like even during the devastation of Baal, like the Blood Angels were completely obliterated, and then they had to call on recruits from all their successors to try to rebuild their chapter. And you know, they're a different story because they're a founding legion and they have the ability to draw from all these other chapters if they need. But yeah, I would imagine they don't take that lightly. I think it's like one of those things where, you know, after 100 years, if they haven't heard from the chapter, maybe the bell on terror, that I forget what they call it, they ring that bell in honor of the chapter who has fallen. But I don't think they do it lightly. I think, you know, the whole thing about Astartes is they're never beaten. You know, you can't beat them. They're going to get back up and keep doing what they need to do.
I mean,
just give them a chance.
I could see it as a way like to kind of keep up morale too. It's like, to put this in Halo terms, like a Spartan is never labeled as KIA. They're only ever labeled MIA. So that sounds like something that, like, just like what you were saying about ringing that bell, they don't do it lightly because the Astartes, they're basically the face of the Imperium. Like,
yeah,
if you see them get slaughtered, like, what hope do you have?
yeah.
Rituals of remembrance. Anniversaries of significant battles or the deaths of notable figures within the chapter are marked by solemn observances. These can include prayer, the sharing of stories, and even reenactments of pivotal events in their history to honor their legacy. I can only imagine. I just had a dark thought in my head. I can only imagine someone trying to put on a play of the reenactment of the battle on the Vengeful Spirit. Someone plays Sanguinius, the other one plays Horus, and all of a sudden that just clicks off the Black Rage and everybody present.
Yeah.
Conclusion. The culture and traditions of the Lamenters are profoundly influenced by their history, their connections to Sanguinius, and the burdens of their gene seed flaws. Their melancholic nature shapes their identity as warriors of the Imperium, driving them to honor their past while confronting an uncertain future. Their dedication to duty, brotherhood, and remembrance creates a rich tapestry of tradition that defines their unique place within the Imperium of Man.
Cool. Yeah, that melancholy is almost like a protection from like even like from it's a protection from bad vibes, but even from chaos, where it's just like if you're sad all the time and you see half your company die, you can't get more sad. You're already kind of in that state of like, that's just the way she goes. So it's kind of like this like protection almost in a way, even though it doesn't seem like a good thing to be melancholy. It's like, well, they're going to do it then, whatever. They're just going to keep it on.
Maybe that particular curse was a blessing in disguise.
Maybe all curses are a blessing in disguise if you let it. That's what my mom told me in church.
But yeah, I think with that melancholy feeling, like it almost makes it like it drives you towards that sacrifice, you know.
It's easier to make it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Speaking of sacrifice, we have a question from Crazy C4. Isn't 40K's Christmas something to do with Sanguinius?
Yeah, that's called Sanguila. We had a great listener lore a while back. It was on Lorehammer Main, not Listener Lore podcast, but it was basically we did a Sanguila contest where people were writing short stories, and we had orcs coming down the chimney and looting. There's some good ones in there. Go definitely listen to that if you want to hear some Sanguila short stories. I would imagine it's probably like listener lore around 20, somewhere like that, but whatever.
Awesome. Well, let's get into some of the Lamenters' battle tactics and see what they do to try and survive all these encounters. The Lamenters, as a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, employ distinct battle tactics that reflect their cultural values, emotional states, and the unique challenges they face due to their gene seed flaws. Here's an overview of some of their preferred battle tactics. So they've got sacrificial valor. The Lamenters are known for their willingness to engage in seemingly hopeless battles, driven by the sense of honor and the belief that their fallen brothers would want them to fight fiercely for the Imperium. They often take on missions that others would consider too risky, reflecting their sacrificial nature. And yeah, this kind of gets back into the idea like they're all sharing stories of each other, talking about it. I could see like a newer Lamenter is listening to these stories of just triumph, and it kind of pushes him to that sacrifice.
Yeah, well, it's like, yeah, we've sacrificed everything, but somehow we're still here after 4,000 years of doing it, so we can keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. They also have aggressive assaults. The chapter often favors aggressive tactics, launching direct assaults against enemy positions. They seek to overwhelm foes through sheer force and determination, believing that quick, decisive actions can turn the tide of battle in their favor. And you also have to remember that they're doing this with minimal armor and tanks, Terminator armor, all that stuff. Yeah, it's just really the manpower.
Yeah, like they like to use Thunderhawk gunships to drop people off, but then, that air sport's probably gone.
This really strikes me as like the mobile infantry from Starship Troopers. It's like you're in with like the basic equipment and that's it. Like
Yeah,
the Imperial
absolutely.
Guard, but Space Marines, if that makes sense.
They also have crisis management. The Lamenters excel in adapting to changing battlefield conditions. Their ability to quickly reassess and shift strategies allows them to exploit enemy weaknesses and take advantage of opportunities as they arise during combat. They fight with coordinated strikes. While they tend to favor aggressive tactics, the Lamenters also employ well-coordinated strikes that involve multiple units working in unison. They emphasize communication and teamwork to maximize their effectiveness, ensuring that their forces can support each other during combat. Heroic leadership. Leadership on the battlefield is critical for the Lamenters. Leaders often inspire through their battle brothers through exemplary bravery and personal sacrifice. Their chapter master and other high-ranking officers frequently lead them to the front, embodying the values of honor and duty that the Lamenters cherish.
Yeah, I love that. They lead how they want the people to follow. If I get shot in the head, you can too. Very good mindset. Heroic leadership.
You know what I would love to see is someone put together a big Lamenters battle force on the tabletop, and every one time one dies, they just burn the mini and then paint a new one.
Ooh, my soul. Oh my God.
I heard
been the
horror stories from tournaments like in years past where like if you did play a game and for every unit that you lost, like the opposing guy would take a hammer and just smash your mini.
Oh,
I don't know how true
awful.
that is, but that's the stories I've heard from other vets.
Yeah, you got to be some type of sycophant to do that kind of nonsense. You know how many hours it took to paint that mustard yellow guy?
You know how many hours I had to work to afford to paint that mustard yellow guy?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ah. Oh my God. Let's talk about some of the famous Lamenters who specialize in this heroic leadership and sacrifice. The chapter master Malachim Foraros. Malachim stands as a chapter master of the Lamenters, bearing the somber titles of the Lord of Ruin and the Watcher of the Deeps. He epitomizes both the profound grief and unwavering resilience of his brethren. A figure of awe and reverence, Pharos struggles against the relentless pull of the black rage that haunts his chapter. In the heat of battle, he is a fearsome sight, teetering on the edge of being consumed by his fury, yet managing to pull himself back to the brink time and time again. He chose to follow Huron and the renegade Astral Claws during the succession of the Maelstrom Zone from the Imperium, a decision that plunged them into the infamous conflict known as the Badab War. Official records state that Pharos was slain during the destruction of his battle barge, as the Lamenters faced overwhelming defeat at the hands of the Minotaurs chapter. Nonetheless, whispers persist of his possible return to the battlefield in exiles, though such tales remain unverified. Yeah, that captain went down with his ship. That's what I'm saying. If he can die, so can you. In a good way, though, for the Emperor.
I'm doing my part.
Up next, we have Semnai. Brother Semnai was on the second vigil of the Long Watch during the notable operation. Having previously served as a kill marine in the distant Kronos expanse, the exact nature of his service in the enigmatic region remains shrouded in mystery, but it is said he traversed the bridges of numerous rogue trader vessels. Many suspect that Brother Semnai was assigned to track a specific enemy of the Death Watch, ultimately cornering this elusive foe at the very edge of the Hekaton's rift. While it is known that he discharged his Apocryphon oath during his climactic battle, details surrounding his intended return to the chapter's homeworld remain elusive. Instead of completing his journey, Semnai chose to embark on a second vigil after Inquisitor Raminus approached him with a request for assistance in the undisclosed task. His service during the Hadix anomaly operation and the reasons behind his continued internment in the Eroke Reclusium remain a complete enigma. The Apocryphon Oath, is that an oath that you take to join the Death Watch? Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I just Googled it.
Sounds
And,
right.
yeah.
Sounds
The
right.
solemn undertaking by which a battle brother of the Adeptus Astartes joins the Death Watch. Yeah, cool. Then up next, we have a dreadnought by the name of Chiron. Amadeus Chirpholius, known as Chiron, is one of the few dreadnoughts within the Lamenters chapter. He managed to evade the catastrophic fate that befell his chapter at the hands of the High Fleet Kraken due to a temporary assignment with the Ordo Xenos Death Watch. Chiron currently believes, albeit mistakenly, that he is the last surviving member of the chapter. Oh, that's rough. So that guy's just chilling in the Death Watch thinking he's the last one. Sad Lamenter is sad.
Man. Jeez.
Do you think they don't have a lot of dreadnoughts because it's like a does it come down to like a resource thing, or does it come down to when a Lamenter dies, he fucking dies?
Yeah, I imagine it could be a little bit of both. Like they don't have that many resources to begin with, so it's not like for everyone that is mortally wounded, they have enough dreadnought suits available. But it's also, and I could see it go both ways.
For sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Like, you're going to make that sacrifice. You don't want to survive that sacrifice, you know? You want to die for that cause. Otherwise
you
does it
failed.
even count?
It doesn't count.
Oh, darn it.
That's why they're all so melancholy, man. All the veterans are just like, fuck, man, I keep failing here. Sanguinius died so well. Why can't I?
It's like, did you survive this encounter? Yes. And you failed. Oh.
Next battle, it's my turn to sacrifice myself to save all you guys.
If you just look at this, and if you just look at this here Lamenter, you can too. But enough about sacrificing Lamenters. Let's talk about their fleet. Chapter fleet. At the start of the Badab War, the Lamenter chapters was equipped with a formidable fleet anchored by the Mater Lacrimanum. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, so forgive me. A massive star fortress and chapter barg that serves as their mobile fortress monastery and repair dock. Accompanying this flagship were 2 Adeptus Mechanicus forged ships and a dozen auxiliary support vessels.
Oh, there you go. So they definitely did have some forged ships kind of following them around at the early days of their chapter. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So now we know where they got their recruits from, or their Mechanicus tech priests from. The Lamenters chapter fleet also boosted an impressive array of warships, including 2 unusually powerful battle barges, 6 strike cruisers, 3 Vanguard class cruisers, and 22 escort ships of varied classes. So it sounds like they were packing some pretty good heat there, at least in the beginning.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty big fleet for like a non-first founding chapter. Most chapters are lucky if they got one battle barge.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, because in 40K, aren't most of the ships like thousands of years old? So does that mean they're just constantly getting resupplied with new ships, or are
What is
they?
that? What is Theseus's ship? Where
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You take
yeah.
a piece of the ship off, you build a new ship. At what point does the old ship become the new ship, or vice versa?
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that happening in 40K over the 10,000 years.
Indeed. I just lost my place. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Following their catastrophic encounters with High Fleet Kraken, the disposition and strength of the Lamenter's fleet remains uncertain. Yeah, the kind of bad luck that they have with the stuff they've gone through, that impressive fleet's probably going to be whittled down.
Yeah,
by
that
a
and the
good bit.
Minotaurs looted it all up too. Hey, that's a nice ship you got there. Mind if I take it from you?
I'll be ashamed if something happened to it.
Yeah.
The Mater Lacrimarum. This colossal mobile star fortress, also referred to as a chapter bark, is the Lamenters' fortress monastery. It houses their gene seed vaults and relics, serving as a mobile bastion of their chapter's legacy. So, okay, this is described as a star fortress. Is that in? I'm not saying it's an exact copy, but is it in any way related to the phalanx that the Imperial Fists use, or some similar makeup?
Yeah, maybe, but I don't think you'd be the same type.
No, I just see it as like a colossal spaceship that's just like their main housing. I mean, isn't a bark like almost like a galleon, right? It's like a 3-masted large ship.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay.
larger side as far as sailing vessels.
Yeah. So just like this massive, 40K ship with all of their different chapters stuff housed in.
Well, it says here that this is a battle barge. So I forgive me, I'm just an idiot. So, but the other battle barge, Daughter of Tempests, a mighty battle barge once integral to the chapter's fleet. The Daughter of Tempest served in the Corinth Crusade. During the Bad Ab War, however, it was captured by the Minotaur's chapter as a prize of war. So again, hey, nice ship you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to it.
Yeah, hey, look, Lamenters, let's be honest. If you keep this ship, you're probably going to get it wrecked. And yeah, for sacrifice and duty, but we're going to keep it safe and actually make use of it. For the Emperor, of course.
For the Emperor, of course. The Mater Suspiria, a strike cruiser. The Mater Suspiria fell to a brutal boarding action by the Minotaur's chapter during the Bad Ab War. Among the assault force was the fearsome Contemptor pattern dreadnought Hecaton Iacchus. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing these names right, so I'm sorry.
I just did a quick Google search of mater, and I guess that's Latin for mother.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
The Dawn
ships are
Reaper.
typically female, sure.
Yeah. Yep. The Dawn Reaper strike cruiser. At the Battle of Optera in 908 M41, Reclusiarch Ivanus Encomi of the Minotaurs led a decisive assault that resulted in the capture of the Dawn Reaper, marking a key victory in the Bad Ab War. So it's like half of their stuff just got yeeted by the Minotaurs, it seems.
Yeah. Pretty well, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just how many ships they've lost, and then to constantly try and resupply it just seems like a logistic nightmare. I mean, most of the Imperium is anyway, so
Yeah.
Yeah. But not only that, you're having to construct a ship and then find them because they are a mobile fleet chapter. So
And they've been sent on 100-year-long crusades to like specifically go die somewhere. But where? Who knows?
So the rules only stipulate they can't take any neophytes. So can they still like repair their stuff essentially, or is it just like, you're out of luck?
Yeah, like I would imagine they make stops at Forge Worlds and like, or even the planet that they help out, they resupply. You know, I just imagine that the people that they're helping out are close by. You know, they're fighting alongside Ultramarines quite often or doing other things. Like I imagine there's just some kind of like, we're not giving you much, but here's something to just kind of keep you going for a minute.
Kind of like a we helped you, you help us, wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing.
Yeah. Moose Viking says this about Mater Lacrimonium and Mater, well, specifically that big mobile star fortress. If you have daddy issues, you definitely need a big, strong mommy figure at home. So I guess that's their shit. Okay. Hot take.
Well, oh yeah, absolutely. Talking about some of the toys they use, some of their relics, while they don't have many, they've got some pretty interesting ones. So they've got the Banner of Tears, the Orders Pronatus, a branch of the Adeptus Astartes, dedicated themselves to retrieving, guarding, studying, and restoring artifacts sacred to the ecclesiarchy. So that's where we were talking about kind of those Indiana Jones style figures that are going down and trying to recover some of these relics. Among their duties, they also maintain and consecrate the banners and symbols of the Orders Militant. The Sisters Pronatus have even reconsecrated the livery of the Imperial forces, such as the Lamenters chapter, whose chapter banner they repaired after the Badab uprising. It's said that as they worked, the sisters wept openly, reflecting on the Lamenters' grave transgressions against even the Emperor. Since then, the chapter standard has been called the Banner of Tears.
That's so funny that it's called that, not like because the Lamenters are like sacrificing themselves. It's like the sisters were like, oh man, they betrayed the Emperor. I can't believe anyone would do that. Like, why? Okay. Fuck the guys who died in service of the Emperor. No.
Yeah, no. It's you did this one transgression. That's what you're going to be remembered for forever, not how many people you've lost along the way.
It doesn't matter how many attaboys you get, but it just takes the one oh shit moment.
Yeah, I've heard this once. You know, you fuck one goat, you're a goat fucker. It's just that's just how it works.
Yeah. Apt
Them's
description.
the breaks.
Thanks, Grandpa, for telling me that.
So they also have the Catechist. The Catechist was an ancient Infernus pistol wielded by Chapter Master Malachim Foros during the time of the Badab War. And then they also have the Glaive in Carmine. The Glaive in Carmine was a formidable two-handed master-crafted power weapon, a glaive wielded by deadly precision by Chapter Master Mikhail Foros throughout the Badab War era too. So yeah, he's just running around combat with this glaive in one hand and this Infernus pistol in the other hand too, if they're most sacred relics.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A very like sanguinary guard type war gear layout there. I wonder like when we were reading kind of the organization and stuff, they must have Sanguinia Guard. They have Death Company and stuff. I do know that. Because Glaive and Carmine, it's like I kind of always thought that every Sanguinary Guard had one or had the option to kind of get one of these relic blades. But maybe as you go down like the succession chapters, maybe they become more rare as it goes, you know, and then only chapter masters might have such war gear. But
they also have the Victory's Price. Victory's Price is a mastercrafted Astartes power spear, revered as both a symbol of honor and grim reminder of the sacrifice for the Lamenters chapter. Carried into countless battles, it has secured many victories, yet its wielders often fall in the final moment of the triumph. While the Astartes are fearless, these entrusted with the spear often resolve to give their lives with purpose, knowing that the spear's legacy bears a heavy price. But
fun.
Yeah, I mean, being a Lamenter by itself is a heavy price.
Yeah. I wonder if they make I wonder if they make it out like that spear is cursed, like everyone who's wielded it has died at the end of their battle, or something like that. But then again, that's like a chicken or the egg. Is it cursed because it's Lamenters using it, or are Lamenters cursed with that?
Yeah. They pick it up and all of a sudden they're like, I'm gonna die in the name of the Emperor, but I'm gonna take everyone out with me first, and then they go on a crazy rampage with it. But yeah,
I mean,
cool
that sounds awesome, honestly. What a way to go out.
Yeah, I think so. There's no greater joy than to give your life for the Emperor. That's what I've been told ever since I was a wee boy. And even when you're dead, your corpse is still useful. We're going to put you in the foundation of the building over there. Your skull can watch over the future generations of people.
You're going in the walls.
You're going in the walls, homie.
Isn't it the Skull of Progenium that has all the corpses and stuff? Not the like the skeletons put into the cement of the walls, just so they always watch the new recruits.
Yeah, that's the worst place ever. Fuck.
Oh god, beautiful on the outside, but super militant on the inside.
You get some pretty badass units out of that, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, we're almost pretty much at the end of our notes here. Before we get to the last little section here, I'll just extend an invite to the people in the live stream. If you want to join us in the chat, ask some questions, or just give us some feedback on what you think about the Lamenters, there is now a link in the podcast notes or whatever in the chat room. Let's dive into some kind of closing questions. I thought, like, this isn't necessarily a Tales of the Warp section, but let's just meander and see where these questions take us. The first one I propose to you boys: if the Lamenters could communicate with their Primarch, Sanguinius, what do you think they would ask him, and how do you think he would respond?
That's a good question. Gerald, do you have any thoughts on that?
I have one. Kind of more of a more humorous response, but like, I can just imagine someone being overly melancholy and then be like, "Hey, Dad, why us?"
Oh. Oh. And how does Sanguinius respond?
Oh, that I don't know.
Because I don't like you, you little shit.
Oh, no.
You don't even have a home world.
I guess I'll go die for the Emperor now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question I'd pose to Sanguinius if I was a Lamenter is, why didn't you just wait for the Emperor to take on Horus 2v1? You could
And yeah, Sanguinius responds like, well, why don't you just wait for Rebuke Gilliman to come back and save me? Yeah.
I don't imagine these conversations would be going over so well.
No. Yeah, he's like, yo, I died. Yo, I'm dead, and these are the questions you're asking me. I think my question, if I was Lamenter and I would ask Sanguinius, is like, was your death worth it?
Ooh.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, because look at all the side effects it created. Like, it put a genetic taint on all his sons. Yeah. It also, like, what would the heresy have been like when it ended, and if Sanguinius was alive to kind of reunite everyone and lead everyone? Because even Horus the War Master is like, it should have been Sanguinius. It shouldn't have been me. Everyone loves Sanguinius. Why did you make? He's an angel, for goodness sake. So like, if he did survive, like, how would the Imperium have been different? So that would be the question I'd pose. Like, do you think that was worth it?
Oh yeah, that's.
Do you think what I'm doing is going to be worth it?
I mean, I imagine he'd probably have a similar, maybe worse reaction than Gilliman or the Lion did when they came back and they saw what the Imperium has become. They're like, oh no. Oh
right?
no.
That's one of the best quotes in all of 40K. I'm going to pull it up, and it's Rebuke Gilliman when he reawakens.
Oh, I know this quote. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Let's see if we can find. Okay, here it is. It's just loading. What more do you want from me? I gave everything I had to you, to them. Look at what they made of our dream. This bloated, rocking carcass of an empire is driven not by reason and hope, but by fear, hatred, and ignorance. Better that we had all burned in fires of Horus's ambition than had lived to see this. So once again, was it worth it, Sanguinius?
Oh man, yeah.
Could have had so much more. We could have had we could have had Brighthammer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What a different place the setting would be, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Any other thoughts on that one before we move to the next question?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, next question. Imagine, if you will, a scenario where the Lamenters must choose between saving a planet from chaos invasion or rescuing their lost battle barge. What factors would influence their decision?
I could see them going in for the sacrifice aspect of it and going for the trying to stop the chaos invasion, because I especially if it's an Imperium world where there's innocent lives, that you know they're gonna value those lives more than trying to find one of their lost battle barges, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
And even though they're like on the most trying of times and there's only fucking 100 guys left, and finding that battle barge could have 200 guys on it, 300 guys on it, they're still like, that's not our duty. Those brothers will look after themselves. We got to look after these people.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's the vibe of them.
Oh, yeah. If anything we learned from this entire episode or any of these notes, it's just like they will pick self-sacrifice over everything else. Well, almost everything else. That battle barge can wait. Right now, we got some civilians to save for some demons.
Yeah. And like I said, I think... No, you go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, with their luck, too, you know, they go to look for this lost battle barge. They'd probably never find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They lose all their guys and the battle barge in the process. They're like, fuck.
No, dang it.
Yeah. I had something and it's gone, so we'll just jump to the next question, I guess. What would the Lamenters' ideal homeworld look like, and how would it reflect their melancholic nature and the burdens they bear? I feel like they would make like a good I'm gonna say tomb world, homeworld, but not like a Necron tomb world, but like a literal like graveyard world of the heroes of the Imperium. Like that's where they reside, you know, in the tombs or whatever, just kind of looking over the death of all the soldiers of the Imperium and protecting them even in death or whatever. I'd imagine that'd be it'd fit kind of the, you know, everyone's talking quietly and peacefully and like, let's not get too worked up. I think a tomb world. I got to find out what that's actually called, but
yeah, almost like a crypt world, you know.
Crypt world. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine it'd be something akin to like that, maybe mixed in with like Ball 2.0, since they're still they seem more in tune with what their founding legion was about, or at least what Sanguinius was all about. So, and it seems like a lot of successor chapters, at least among the Blood Angels, they all feel that connection to Ball. So maybe like a Crypt World meets Ball 2.0 kind of is how I would imagine it.
Sure. The correct term that I found is cemetery worlds, and they may mark the site of a massive battle, or they may be covered in giant mausoleums, each dedicated to a particular imperial noble family. In contrast, some rare cemetery worlds may be covered in fields of endless, modest burial plots containing the remains and inhabitants of a nearby hive world or heroes. So, cemetery world.
To just walk miles and miles, and all you see is just headstones everywhere.
Yeah. I think that's the place for a Lamenter, though, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
And the final kind of question I had here to ponder was, will the Lamenter's crusade of repentance ever truly end? And what would it have to do to end their streak of bad luck?
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that one, Mark?
Yeah, like, I don't think duty ever ends in 40K. War is eternal. So I don't think that will ever resolve itself. But the whole thing of like, what would they have to do to break their streak of bad luck? it just, would they have to change their mindset? Maybe is this one of those things where, like we're saying, that ever since recruits, they're kind of indoctrinated into that self-sacrifice kind of mentality. So would they literally have to change like the core concept of who they are in order to end this streak of bad luck? I often think of myself as a lucky person. I even got the word luck tattooed on my neck. And I think like the way you brand yourself is important. You brand yourself a happy person, you're a happier person. That mindset matters. So I think, yeah, they would have to change like who they are to kind of break that curse. While I think there might be some ties to the actual like gene seed and the curse founding fuckery and all that, but I think it's mindset.
Yeah, I could see the requisition officer, and he's trying to help them with that mindset by telling them no new recruits.
Yeah.
That can only go over so well. Gee, these Lamenters are looking very melancholic lately. You think it could be the penitent crusade we have going on? Nah.
But
Now
no,
they love that.
I agree with you absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, how much of the bad luck is kind of cast upon themselves, by going on these almost suicidal sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get a little meta here, if I'm using that phrase correctly. Like, Mark, you've made this point before in numerous episodes. Like, the whole idea of 40K, especially with these storylines, is like there's that impossible task that a character, a faction, or whatever has to maintain, and so that way they stay relevant to the storyline. I think if the Lamenters were to actually break that bad luck streak, then that, just like what you said with the whole mindset, would just completely like change like who they are as a chapter, like their identity and the setting, and then that just there's no point having any more Lamenter stories if that's the case. So it's just like that needs to be their impossible task of curing that bad luck, so to speak.
Yeah.
For them to stay as the Lamenters that we know and love and cry over.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep. If only they just changed their chapter logo to a heart with a $sign in it, life would be better for them. But no. Cool. Well, we're reaching the end here. Last call for any call-ins. We're going to just do some shout-outs, and if somebody wants to jump in the chat here, last chance, there's a link there. Me and Gerald, we do Lorehammer Listen to Lore. It's a separate podcast feed. We recorded one a day ago, actually. It was a lot of fun. It was a pretty trolly one, actually. Hey, Gerald?
Yes. But it was still a fun read.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was trolly, but it had a lot of cool concepts. And we were just talking about how, like, I like the trolling and I like the cool concept. I wish it was two different stories that guy wrote. But come check out Lorehammer Listen to Lore. It's a lot of fun. We almost have 200 episodes out there. And Gerald, you got your own podcast that you run.
I do. It is called Grim Lore. So if you're looking into exploring Warhammer, the Warhammer fantasy side of things, like from Total Warhammer, come check us out. We do a lot of, now it's called Old World, but we cover the fantasy side of things, maybe a little bit of Age of Sigmar, and then we do delve into some other grim and or dark settings as me and my co-host desire. So when you're done listening to us or listening to Lorehammer, come check us out at Grimlore.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. We've been talking about doing a crossover with Grimlore and Lorehammer and just talking about the difference between the warp and the settings, where why is the Great Horned Rat in one and not in the other? And why is Slaanesh in one and not in the other? And I think that'd be a lot of fun to kind of talk about the similarities of the warp and how it is similar, but also very different, and how they're very different settings still.
Because there's definitely there's definitely a lot of explaining to do, because you can play Chaos Demons in both 40K and Old World / Age of Sigmar. So,
I know some new people, like really new people to the hobby, they think that it's like it's on the same timeline, even though they're not.
Yeah.
But that'd be a fun episode. So we're going to work on that with the boys from Grimlore. So what about you,
Yes,
Dick?
sir.
Do you have anything you want to shout out?
Sure, yeah. So this coming Sunday, we're going to be having a movie night, and I think looking at the votes right now, we threw up a vote on Discord. It's still up until right before the movie night. But Starship Troopers is looking like it's going to win. So,
That's classic. I think
Classic,
that's
so
the perfect one to start off a movie night. Just some bugs versus humans. We can all kind of get that. I like it. Yo, have you
Yeah.
ever watched the animated cartoon of Starship Troopers?
I actually have. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't know
man.
such a thing existed.
Yeah, go watch that, man. That show was janky as shit, but awesome. Like the graphics
Mhm.
were fucked, but like so good, man. I loved it. Check
But
it out.
yeah, grab some minis, come paint with us. We'll be kind of chatting as we watch the movie, eating some snacks, just having a good old chill time.
Yeah, nice. Very nice. And the
Fantastic.
final thing we'll say before the show ends out here is we'll just read off the one Patreon supporter this week. And thank you so much to Michael for throwing us a couple bucks or whatever. If you want to support the show, just go to Patreon Lorehammer. If you're still listening, we're 2 hours deep into a conversation. And so, $1 doesn't hurt us. Throw one our way, throw two our way. I got a kid I need to feed now. I don't just blow this on my plastic crack addiction. So
Yeah. Also, if you want another way to help us out too is on Redbubble at the merch store. There's a whole bunch of awesome
Ooh.
stuff on there. Coffee mugs, there's hoodies, phone cases,
Yes.
stickers. I mean, any of that stuff helps out a lot too.
Yeah, I think somebody just needs to buy 100 stickers and just start smacking them on bus stops everywhere.
I know what I'm
Stick
doing
one
later on
there.
tonight.
There we go. Just gotta
Yeah,
get-
I'll even
guys.
fund half that project.
You're gonna
I want
see a
this-
bus go by, and there'll just be 100 Lorehammer stickers in the back, all slapped onto the same bus.
One of our
That's
one of
Lorehammer's
our
bus
listeners
now.
here. One of our listeners here just picked up a flag, so yay!
Nice. Yeah, fucking tight. You can see a flag in my background, but halfway through the recording, half of it fell down. So you can see half of a Lorehammer flag. Very cool. Yeah, you can check out Redbubble for that, or we also have some other merchandise on Teespring, but I think Redbubble's a better spot. We also have in the episode notes, we have links to everything, to the Patreon, to the merchandise, to Discord, to everything that you want to get involved with. So check out the episode notes to get involved. Well, I think the B team, Trevor Buzak, Gerald, and Nick fucking killed this episode. Thanks, boys, for joining me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, and this was a nice little test. With Lorehammer being a live stream now and not tons of people have asked, can I come on your show? And I said, man, you make your way to Calgary and come into the studio. We'll record. But now that rule's kind of changed. I'm definitely open to having new people on. Like one of my favorite parts of Lorehammer, the thing I always wanted was just more people to talk 40K to. So the more the better. So definitely reach out on any podcast platform or any way to get a hold of me, whatever. And I'd love to get more kind of random people on to talk 40K with. Once
definitely
again,
hop
Gerald
into
and Nick, thanks for joining.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely hop into the Discord. It is always active and it is the top tier community. It's awesome.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, we'll say adios and good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.